There's nothing revolutionary about what I'm about to show you. I just thought I would, you know, show you another project. This is another scrap melt. I said at the beginning, well, the end of last year, that I thought that this would be my scrap melt phase, and I'm just loving these things. So I've got my stainless steel former. It's lined with my fiber paper that I sprayed with zip. I've actually already used this setup once before, and because of the zip, it came out nice and clean, and I can just reuse it again. I've put a base of Tecta in the bottom of this, really because I just kind of like to have a good old-fashioned clean bottom to this, and I expect that I'm going to flip it and refire it, and so the Tecta gives some depth to what would then be the top of the piece. Let me show you what I'm putting in. I have some of this Bullseye peacock with an iridescent coating, and so I had a couple of pieces left over from a big circle that I cut out to do a plate, and so I'm going to chop that up into bits and pieces. I've already also chopped up a bunch of Tecta, just because I like to have a lot of that clear in there, and I'm using my handy dandy little chopper. I've showed this before. It was a Paul Tarlow idea. This is my Bullseye jar, frit jar, but then there's a hose clamp around the lip of that. There's a little L bar joint thing and another tiny hose clamp, and so what it allows me to do is move through that real quickly. I can chop up that Tecta super fast. I do have a frit sifter, or I mean a frit smasher maker thing, but then you get a bunch of powder and tiny little bits and pieces. I didn't want all that. I just want big chunks, and so I can move through it really quickly using this tool. I'm going to chop this all up and blend it all in, and then pour it into my mold. I also had from an earlier project this, I did use the frit maker smasher thing, and it had some large chunks, and so I'll sprinkle this. This is also peacock with a bunch of turquoise. This was a 2-layer piece that didn't work, and so it got smashed up. This is not irid, just that is the irid, but I figured I'd just fill in a little bit with this. One thing I should have noted, I mean, I did move through that quickly, is that this is all clean. So what you didn't see beforehand was that I cleaned all of this glass and cleaned all of this. My hands were clean so that I've got nice clean glass as I chop this up, and I don't have to worry about trying to clean little pieces. I just clean big pieces. Now I'm going to add all this in. Just pour it out of there. And basically I'm just going to try to mix this up a little bit. Boy, that's loud. How about I not do that on camera? Okay, this may be a little bit more than I need, but what I'm going to do is basically just pour this up into the middle, kind of push it out to the edges. I don't want it too stacked up against the edges because I want the glass to kind of flow to the edge and not down the edge. That was probably pretty loud. Let me just finish this. Okay, I just kind of spread it out in there a little bit. I also used I don't know, a fair amount of that crushed up frit, which will give me some really neat color and texture variation in there. I'm going to go ahead and put this on a really high heat full fuse with a long hold at the top. I'll post my schedule and we'll see what this looks like when it comes out. Okay, got a really nice full fuse out of this scrap melt. It's thicker, so I am going to put it back in, but I had already planned on that. There's a large bubble that kind of surfaced right there, and there is another one not quite as large. Can't even find it now. Oh, right here. So anyway, I hope that those don't cause issues as I flip this and refire it, but generally speaking, bubbles don't bother me. I just don't want them to cause an issue with trapped air on a refire, but I hope I'll be fine. So what I'm going to do, as was always the plan, is flip this and refire it. Now, I used Tecta scrap, and so what you might be able to detect is there's a line right here. I used 4 strips, so I've got 3 seams in the middle. Yeah, you can see it pretty well there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down. I'm going to use a diamond pad because I don't have a lot of cold working equipment, just a diamond pad and some American muscle here. I'm going to take a diamond pad and sand this down to basically knock down those seams and give me a fairly clear surface. Then I'm going to dust clear powder over it, put it back in the kiln, and fire it to a full fuse, which will help it thin out just a little bit, so it'll get a little bit bigger, and it'll give me a nice finished look on the top of this. Okay, overall very pleased. The full fuse did take this out just a little bit, so it got a little bit bigger, and then I slumped it in the platter mold, and this is the resulting piece. Looks very nice, totally food safe. All the irid is covered because of that extra layer of Tecta here, so we are good. I'm pleased with this one. Hey, it's Jameson, and I thought I would show you quickly another scrap melt that I'm doing. This was a piece of red rainbow iridized with clear Tecta on the back, 2 layers, that I full fused onto a mold and got a giant hole in. So I chopped it all up into lots of little bits and pieces, and I decided to use one of these Laurie Spray stainless steel formers to turn it into a scrap melt. So I've got a base of Tecta in the bottom, and then I painstakingly took these large chunks and turned them all irid side up. And now I filled in with, I have, after busting all this up, I have some, you know, kind of larger coarse frit, and so I just put frit throughout that. And we're just gonna give this a full fuse and see what happens. I may dust a little clear, no, never mind, not even gonna put clear powder on it. I'm just gonna give this a good old-fashioned full fuse, and we'll see the piece that comes out. I don't know what this will turn into in the future. I'll probably slump it into a platter of some sort. May have to refire it a couple more times, but thought I would just show you the start of it. Okay, this piece finished firing. The irid looks really cool. There was one spot, well, there's a couple spots along the edge over there where the irid's kind of popping up. There was also one spot, yeah, right there in the middle, where it didn't fully lay down. So this irid coating would not be considered food safe. So I'm trying to decide what to do with this piece now. Part of me wanted to just dust it with powder and refire just as it sits in here. I thought I could cover it with some Tecta scrap, but it is already really thick. So I'm gonna decide what to do, but I'm leaning toward dusting with clear powder and refiring right where it sits. Okay, here's what I've decided to do on this piece. I did take it over, there were some spiky edges, so I took it over to the grinder and did a rough grind on the side just to knock those off. There are a few here on this piece. I don't know if you can see that, like right there. That little dagger sticking up there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the Dremel, there's a couple more like over here on the edge where that irid just didn't lay down. I'm gonna wet this down, take the Dremel, knock those back a little bit to try to make them painless. And then I initially thought that I would dust this with clear powder, but I think that this irid is gonna continue to float, and I'm never gonna be able to get all this covered and then consider this food safe. So I'm gonna flip it, because this was a sheet of Tecta along the bottom. Now, it wasn't a full sheet. I used some scraps, so you can see a little bit of a line there and a little bit of a line here. I'm gonna flip this. I'm gonna dust this really well with clear powder and take it up to another full fuse and hopefully get a nice shiny finish to this. You can see a little bit of the irid through there, and then that'll be the bottom of the platter, and it'll just be a little bit of a surprise bottom within just a relatively clean, hopefully, and nice top on the top. So I'm gonna knock this off, knock some of these off, and then I'm gonna dust the whole thing, clean it up really well, dust the whole thing with powder, and take it back to the kiln. I've got a little diamond bit on my Dremel, and I'm gonna spray a little water on here and go to town. Since I was flipping this and refiring it, that little extra step may not have been necessary, but I just feel a little bit better about it. Okay, we're out of the kiln after that full fuse with the clear powder on top. The sanding of the diamond pads to knock off the line, the seam underneath worked perfectly, because I honestly can't tell where it was. I don't even remember. Clear powder gave us a nice finished look on this. I am going to slump it. If I had significant cold working equipment, I might work on this edge, because there's a little bit of variation here in this edge. It would be nice to have a nice square straight line, I suppose, but I kind of like the organic nature of it anyway, or I keep telling myself that since I don't have the fancy cold working equipment that a lot of people do. But as far as I'm concerned, this is ready to slump. I'm gonna slump it into a platter. There's the irid underneath. Very pleased. Let's see what the slump looks like. Okay, and here we are on this red piece. I'm thrilled with this. The red is deep and beautiful. You've got some gorgeous irids in there. There's a nice thick layer of tecta over it. The flip and fire worked well. The slump is nice and deep. I'm very, very pleased with this. I'm delighted to see scrap and a frustrating project turned into a beautiful finished result. So thanks for following along. If you're interested in other videos, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. I love to hear from you. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.